guilty of crime.
Hello, everybody. What's up? Happy Thursday. My shirt says Friday, so you can see what mood I'm in. I'm ready for it to be Friday for sure. What's up, everybody? It's somebody's birthday. I see Rocky saying, yay for the Capricorns. Happy birthday. And, well, I came on a minute or so early to test out my new computer. So I'm on my new computer, you guys, and I want to make sure I'm able to hear things, etc. So welcome. Good to see you all. Good to see you. You guys, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Yeah, we're getting towards Friday. I wore this because it's nice and comfy and it feels kind of like Friday to me. Okay, so you guys, we're in deep in a lot of cases here on Guilty of Crime, right? I just came on a little bit ago and talked to you about Naziah Harris. Today we're talking about JonBenet Ramsey, and the reason we're talking about it again is because number one, it's been 8 years or 20. I'm gonna play it in a second. It's been 20 some odd years to the day that they haven't solved this, and in between them we have lots of theories. Today we're going to talk about how to test theories. Did the parents cover up the red rum for her brother, and how does that tie to the Netflix documentary, as well as what is with this guy that says he did that? What is with the guy that is telling Court TV that he does it? John something other we're going to talk about. So what is up with all of that? My new computer, you look wonderful. Do I? Is that it? I just got a little slowdown on it. That's interesting. All right. Quality of the live is cool. I feel like it just slowed down, but let's do this. Let me pull it this way and see what happens. This is the first time I'm using it, so it could also be the internet, folks. And let's see. I just saw it do that. All right, let's press play.
6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey's body was found in her family's Boulder, Colorado home. Now her father is planning to meet again with local police, discussing new DNA testing technology that might hopefully fill in the forensic gaps in this case and bring closure to this family. Laura Engel is here with the very latest. Laura, what else do we know about these meetings?
Good afternoon. You know, this has been a significant year for the JonBenet Ramsey saga in the sense that this infamous cold case has received new attention through the recent Netflix series Cold Case.
All right. And so that's what we're doing here. We know there's new DNA coming. It seems to be coming to a head now. Patsy's no longer with us, but John is, and he's using his voice as much as he can. So thank you guys. Thank you guys all. And let me remind you, everything that I put into this channel comes from me, unless it's donated or, super chat, super sticker. So if you guys can hit the like button, it's free. If you don't have the means to donate, then don't, but hit the like button and share. If you share with your community, you're doing me a favor. And Rob, I love that you're in here because we're talking today about the parents. We're talking about today about John, the one that's obsessed with JonBenet, and we're talking about what this DNA is going to show us. So I love when people are here that have strong theories, because what we're talking about is theories. Until the DNA matches, we're talking about theories. So that being said, let me hit that play button real quick. We'll talk about the DNA and yeah, Kimberly Jones says, not the dad, John, the crazy guy. Yes, not the dad, the crazy guy. And I have a quick interview with him, but let's listen to this and I'll get his last name. It's some weird last name.
Case Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey, along with promises from the new police chief in Boulder, Colorado, that investigators are in fact actively working on solving this mystery. And JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, continues to urge Boulder police to use cutting-edge DNA technology that wasn't available back in 1996 when his daughter was found murdered inside of their home in Colorado. He points out that in 1997, unidentified male DNA was.
All right, so that's it. There you go. Unidentified male DNA. Now it's Gary Olivia. I'm sorry, it's not John. And you guys, if you haven't heard of it, then we're still gonna talk about what that is. But a year ago, it came out that new developments in the case, a convicted predator PEDO, Gary Olivia, allegedly admitted to having an obsession with child beauty, JonBenet Ramsey, and confessed to the 1996 killing in letters to a former classmate. So what is that? And it's been a year, so DNA is around. They ran it. He is a PEDO. So what do you guys think about that? Do you even know about that? Do you know that somebody confessed to this in letters and they have DNA that we're talking about right here? If you don't, you're going to find all of that out today.
Discovered at the crime scene, but the format of that testing is now outdated, something he told me about last month right here on News Nation.
They have the ability to separate DNA, mixed DNA samples, which is one of the issues with the sample they got in 1997. They had an unidentified male DNA sample in early 1997. It was mixed apparently with JonBenet's blood DNA. That can now technology-wise be separated. They have the ability to do familial genealogy research, which has been wildly successful in solving old cold cases.
So as you know, that's JonBenet's dad. He's still in the mix. He's out there talking. He wants this solved. No, Gary Olivia did not write that ransom note. No, he didn't. But we're going to talk about the ransom note today. I love some of these people out there that are talking about the JonBenet Ramsey case because they really just nail it with my theories, your theories, all the things going on with this case. They absolutely just go into my brain and talk about it. So the interview room has been talking a lot about JonBenet Ramsey, and so we're going to talk about them, but also Deception Detective has nailed it with some interviews. So I see that I've got a little bit of lag here. I'll probably have to fix that, but welcome everybody. This is my new computer, so we'll see what happens.
That's what we're asking the police to do.
So this is incredible because Ramsey says he is set to meet with Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern in January, alongside representatives from a leading DNA lab to push for this approach. And he has also made it very clear for his goals for the new year will be to continue putting pressure on investigators until every avenue has been explored. Adrian.
And we heard a little bit there from your reporting and those sound bites, but what exactly might Boulder police uncover with that new technology?
Yeah, I mean, in the long run, we hope to see some kind of a name come out of this, right? But Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern says the department does remain committed to finding JonBenet's killer and has already taken significant steps to modernize their investigation. And in a video statement that was released last month, Boulder Police said they're working with forensic experts to find the latest advancements in that DNA technology and recently digitized all case evidence. And that's huge, Adrian.
Yes.
Thousands of files to create a searchable database, which could reveal new leads. The department has also taken inventory of more than 2,500 pieces of evidence and reviewed 40,000 reports in the last year alone.
And this is why we have to bring up-to-date information as well as not just up-to-date information, but theories and people that are saying that they confess. Like, how does all this fit together? What's going on? Is the DNA going to just tell us what happened or who did it? How's the DNA going to connect to the person that took JonBenét's life and who wrote the letter? Maybe somebody different wrote the letter than did that. Maybe there were multiple people. Maybe it wasn't John and Patsy. Maybe it was, but that's what we're trying to speculate today. And with the evidence that we have, that's what we want to find out. We want to know before they know, right? We want to guess before they guess. Okay. So Rosie says, who do you think did it? Well, my theory has always stood that it's within the family. I feel like the parents covered it up for the brother, but then now that I'm looking into the brother more, I'm like, wait, I'm not quite sure, but I feel like, and we're going to talk about that ransomware. I feel like the parents produced that. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Foxy and Alicia and Sabrina and Synth. There's other family members. Yeah, there's another brother out there. There are more family members. All right, so we're going to get into Deception Detective right after this clip.
Loan officials say they are regularly investigating these new tips and remain hopeful the increased attention will bring a lead and a break in this case. And we continue to monitor every development on this. Hopefully, we'll have more to report later today. Adrienne.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen.
All right, so I'm glad that you go back to the ransom note because we're going to go how to analyze a theory. We're going to talk about JonBenet Ramsey case. Everyone's got a theory, including us. So which one do you think is grounded in reality? And let's watch John and Patsy talk and Deception Detective detect what they're saying in theory. And then we'll talk about the guy that confessed to it and more evidence, you guys. My shirt threw you off. It says Friday. You didn't lose a day. I am in good spirits and it's Friday. You guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. I know we're not presenting Madeline Soto today. So we don't have hundreds in here, but soon we will. Our goal is to get to 50,000 this year. If we can get more than that, hey, we are going to be covering the Naziah Harris case even further. So please go back and watch that. It's heartbreaking, and Naziah needs as much outreach as Madeline. She really does. It's not fair. It's not fair that it's just stuck in that Detroit community within the people of color. It's not getting out to everybody nationwide, and I don't know why. So yes, happy Thursday. It looks like Friday, but it's just a comfy shirt, you guys. You know what? I do my own IT stuff, you guys. I do everything. So again, thank you guys for being here. If you like what I do and you like that I do everything, you guys can hit the like button for me. Throw me a super chat, super sticker, or PayPal Venmo. Now, I did hook my computer up. It might not be perfect, but I did it, right? I had to unhook everything, hook it back up, run tests, make the volume work, put the camera back. There's a lot of stuff, guys. I worked late last night doing this. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday. So hopefully this episode and all my episodes moving forward are better, and I can only do it with your help. So thank you. If you have the means, if you don't, hit the like button and help assist it out. All right, let's listen to this. Let's go.
Only John and Patsy truly know whether they're guilty or innocent, and analyzing their words is the closest we'll get to reading their minds. The JonBenet case is a real-world whodunit. Everyone's got a theory, but which ones are grounded in reality and which are red herrings? Let's analyze the Ramseys on Barbara Walters to find out.
Do you understand why it is that so many people still think you are guilty?
I understand that they've been told that by the media for 3 long years. I'm amazed that the whole world doesn't think we're guilty.
Yes.
Based on what they've been told.
Let me go through some of the major reasons why people feel you are guilty. The beauty pageants. If we had only seen pictures of JonBenet in little jeans and a T-shirt, there might not have been the same feeling. But what we saw in still photographs and in videos was a child dressed like an adult, very suggestive in many of these pictures, lipstick, mascara, moving around on the stage on these beauty pageants. To many people, this looks perverted.
Right.
Therefore, there's got to be something wrong here.
There is something wrong here if someone thinks that was perverted.
If JonBenet hadn't done pageants, would you conclude that John and Patsy were innocent? Of course not. The pageants are eye-catching and make for provocative headlines, but they don't actually matter. That's what this video is about, separating the distractions from the truly revealing evidence, and there is a lot of it. The next time I pause, we'll even set aside things that you might think are critical, like forensics, but don't worry, it will all make sense.
JonBenet was an entertainer. She would entertain at the drop of a hat. Little girls dress up.
Now, let me tell you, I don't feel like it's I don't feel like that's the reason that I feel like it's them. That's where the evidence seems to keep taking me, is back to that family, you guys. This I don't like. I have a daughter. My daughter's beautiful. If you've seen her, my wife suggested that we do not beauty pageants, but maybe put her in commercials or something like that. Okay, so I said, absolutely freaking not. I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen. I'd rather go sew my ass than to put her out there. So we don't do that. So it's just not my preference. But some of the images that we've seen on my channel disgust me in the way that they pose this little girl. I don't like it. I think this is a magnet for PEDOs. I think that it's absolutely disgusting. And thank you, other Mona, for the $5 super sticker. And everybody that did donate to my new computer fund, I thank you. Thank you, because I do have a new computer. That's how Leos do it around here. You say something and it happens. You say you're going to do it and it happens. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you dig the way it's looking. I think I can see I look more clear today. I think that it looks a lot clearer. So, yeah, totally inappropriate for the age, especially the bra stuffing, you guys. That bra stuffing and having her hand by her mom's belt loop. It looked like she was by a person's belt loop ready to do what Madeline wrote about. So just saying. What's up, Jack Stormo? Good to see you. Thank you guys again. Thank you all. Thank you, Leanne. All right, it does look sharper. Thank you. All right, Ashton Lee, let's get to this.
Play dress up.
You yourself had entered beauty contests.
Yes.
I'm a junior at West Virginia University.
So this was what, fun for you both?
It was the most wonderful time of my life. It's not unlike a father who enjoyed playing baseball as a child. He wants to impart that same love of the game with his son or daughter. There's just absolutely nothing wrong with it.
They called JonBenet a 6-year-old Lolita, a pun-sized sex kitten.
The people that look at these things and see something perverted, that didn't come from JonBenet. That's coming from the viewer, not the child.
So let me go through what the motives are.
Now, in her defense, I got to tell you, in that time back then, 26 or 28 years ago, that's right. There was more, women stay home. They don't go out to the office. The guys go out to the office work. So it was a little bit more like that back then. So in her defense, I'll say that a little bit. And I believe she was living through her daughter vicariously, right? To bring her youth back. So I'm just following the evidence. If you strictly follow the evidence and you're not judging them based on that, what do we have left? And Sabrina Ham, I'm going to say you're going to hit the lottery and then you're going to come back and split it with Jay from Guilty of Crime. All right. So some people say, hey, the housekeeper had the same notepad and pen in her place. Her husband was supposed to fix the window and he didn't. So now we wait to see what the DNA says. Cindy M says a child is not able to consent about what they will do. The mother coerced John to do the pageant. Okay, but who followed what do we do when we follow the evidence? What happens then? And yeah, we've got mods in here to get rid of the trolls if there are any. So thank you for being such a tight-knit group here.
Motive number 1. You are guilty, Mr. Ramsey, because there was some evidence that your daughter had been sexually molested.
Whoever abused JonBenet must have killed her. In an episode of CSI, that might be a solid conclusion. But real life is rarely so simple. Even if John abused JonBenet, that doesn't mean he killed her. In fact, the way her body was left behind to be discovered and autopsied actually suggests the killer wasn't the abuser, if there was an abuser at all. So let's set the abuse stuff aside, just like the pageant stuff. It might have some value in solving the crime, but it's far outweighed by its potential to distract from much stronger evidence. For example, John and Patsy's accidental confessions, one of which is coming up next. Listen closely.
I know as best I can know as a father who was with his daughter every day that I was home. She was not sexually abused or molested before December 26th.
Okay, but on December 26th, there are some indications that your daughter was sexually molested.
Well,
Therefore, here's the motive. You were doing it. Maybe you've done it before. Maybe you just did it that night. Perhaps your wife discovered you. Whatever it was, JonBenet cried out. You killed her.
Well, that's fits right in the category of it could have been done by an alien as well.
And you know what? That was weird that he said she hadn't been sexual before December 26th, because I don't remember them saying that it was a sex motivated crime. And I think Deception Detective is going to pick up on that. Welcome, everybody. I see somebody said cow poop in here. And Ashton, I assure you, my head was already big before I started this channel. Remember, I used to do tattoos. So I would be ready to do a tattoo and there'd be somebody in my chair half undressed giving compliments. That's when you know you're humbled. I hope you heard that, Ashton. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, I love all the people that are coming in. I see new people. Thank you guys. Please subscribe. And then if you have something to send me a new idea, guiltyofcrimebyj@gmail.com. All right.
Oh, it makes no sense. There's no history. A person doesn't go throughout their lives as a normal human being, one night turn into a monster, slaughter their daughter, go to bed, and get up and act normal from there on. That doesn't happen. In these kinds of cases, virtually all of them, I suspect, where there is child abuse in a family, there's a long history. And that's not the case in our family.
I have to point out that JonBenet's pediatrician, who had been her pediatrician from birth, has publicly said that he never saw any evidence of sexual molestation. There never have been reports from her school. And yet there is the suspicion.
I would have given my life for JonBenet in an instant. I'm sorry that I couldn't have done it that night. To be accused of...
And he just put the leakage card out. Now, Ashton, that was a freaking paintbrush. That was a paintbrush that they used to make the garrote, and it was something that could be a Boy Scout, or it could just be somebody that learned something. You know, they could be somebody in the, I don't know, that is an outdoors person, or maybe it could be somebody in the military. I don't know if they learned garrotes, but they used what was in the house. They didn't bring it from outside of the house, and this guy just gave verbal leakage. See if you can find what he is giving leakage about. Liars can unintentionally reveal the truth through their choice of words, as it's challenging to suppress real memories while telling falsehoods. If someone repeatedly uses unusual phrases or words, it might be a clue worth investigating. So what did he say wrong right now? And we have the autopsy report. We have the whole autopsy report. We showed it last week, and it's also on my Patreon. So let's listen to what, sailors could have done it. A lot of different people, but I feel like there are two people that did that. One that wrote the note, one that did it, and both of them covered up. So it just keeps leading me back to the same place.
Harming my child in any way is beyond comprehension.
Why did John say he would have traded places with JonBenet that night? According to the autopsy, her time of death could have been any time between that night and 5 a.m. the next morning. If he was only guessing, wouldn't it be more logical to assume she died in the morning? After all, the supposed ransom note threatened to kill JonBenet if they called the police, which they did first thing in the morning. Without hesitation, by the way, and they've never expressed regret about doing that, which are both red flags of their own. Here's my theory. John's choice of words here might have been an embedded confession. When people are hiding information, they often reveal details that they shouldn't realistically know without realizing it. By saying that night, John may have leaked that he knows exactly when JonBenet died because he was there. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean he's the murderer, but it could mean he knows who is. If you've seen the other videos in this series, you'll know my top suspect. I'll link the playlist at the end of this video. One slip-up isn't proof of guilty knowledge. We need multiple examples, and we're about to get another, this time from Patsy.
This was a very
All right, and before she gets going, she's saying this is a very brutal, and we're going to listen to what she has to say. But Ashton, I got to tell you, I watched that multiple times. Burke, now they say something's wrong with him. He's got some kind of neurodivergent. I don't know exactly what it is. I've never had anyone tell me exactly what it was. But last week when I played part of that interview from Dr. Phil, Dr. Phil's a greedy mother trucker. He pulled down a piece. I had to pull that piece down off of my page because he wanted to take money from it. Absurd. He wanted to lock up the whole episode, so I had to pull it out. So yes, if you guys seen the Dr. Phil If you haven't seen it, go watch that. Go Google Dr. Phil interview with Burke Ramsey. It's very creepy, very unusual. I don't know exactly what it is. I can't hit I don't know exactly, but your computer working very well. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks to you guys.
Brutal murder. And yet some of the authorities have said that you staged this, that you loosely tied your daughter's hands, that you put the noose, the garrote, to make it look as if some terrible person had done this, that this whole picture was staged.
Well, that's absurd. This was done by a terrible person. The garrote was deeply embedded in JonBenet's throat. Her hands were tightly bound. I couldn't get.
I wonder if he said it like that on purpose, because I've always heard people say garrote, and I wonder if he said garrote to make it sound like he doesn't even know what he's talking about. He wouldn't know how to do that whatsoever at all. It was very weird that how he's talking about, and then no emotion whatsoever. I couldn't do it, you guys. If I was talking about, and I won't even say it, let's just say I was talking about one of your kids, and I was talking about a garrote being tightly wrapped, and imagining this little angel, I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And listen to him. Right.
Get the knot untied. I tried to get it untied even before I brought her upstairs. The fundamental issue is no logic has been applied to any of this case. Why would I, for example, have staged this horrible scene and then disturbed it myself, pulled the tape off her mouth, carried her upstairs, tried to untie the hands before I brought her upstairs? If I'd have staged it, I would have wanted the police to see it as I staged it. It's not logical. Makes no sense.
Let me give the motive that is ascribed to you, Mrs. Ramsey.
Okay.
Was bedwetting a source of tension in your house?
Absolutely not. All children have accidents.
The motive is that JonBenet wet her bed, and that you got angry, you lost it, you snapped, you killed her, perhaps accidentally. You were downstairs, maybe she came down, she said, "Mommy, I wet my bed." You said, "Again, JonBenet," and you either pushed her or you hit her. You were exhausted, you were furious.
All right. And before I get into that and we listen, pay attention to her face and her demeanor on how we're talking about that. Now, Sarah, that's why I named my episode JonBenet Ramsey. Did her parents cover up for her brother? Did they cover it up? Because I don't think a 9-year-old would have the physical strength and wherewithal to do that either. Or any of that. I don't think he would have known to go run off to the neighbor's house when the police came. Don't know that either. But what I asked was, did her parents cover up the taking of her life for her brother? That's what I want to know. Or for somebody in the family. It looks like 2 people did it, and it keeps coming back to me that 2 people did it. All right. Anna, you don't have to go to sleep. Watch my episode. All right. Let's go.
You did it.
First of all, we know from the evidence that this was a premeditated murder. The way in which she died, the garrote that was around her neck,
you could have done it. You could have gotten nervous, and afterwards you could have done it. You could have awakened your husband and said, "I did this terrible thing, John, and now we have to stage this." You know, people have said this.
Of course they've said it.
But would you have a child, would you get up in the middle of the night and slaughter your child? We're parents. We love our children.
I believe them. I believe they love JonBenet and their son Burke. When Patsy described the crime scene, she said it was obviously a premeditated murder. But when she described the act itself, she stopped short of saying that JonBenet was murdered, killed, or even kidnapped. Instead, she said JonBenet died. Why? Here's my theory. She knows who murdered JonBenet, and she can't bring herself to damn that person, even in her word choice. By switching to the passive tense died, she absolves the killer of the act. Likewise, because she and John staged the crime scene to look like a murder, she has no problem referring to it that way. She's not damning anyone. If you've seen my first video in this series, How to Analyze Suspects, you'll know that Patsy couldn't even condemn the killer to death in a hypothetical about what sort of punishment the killer should get. Again, I think that's because she's the killer's mother.
No. What do you say when people say you just snapped? I mean, you know, whatever it was, something went wrong, you did this terrible thing, John then helped you, you staged this whole thing. You know, maybe you don't even know that she did it.
That's impossible. I mean, it's just, it's
Come on, guys.
Asking the questions, you know,
I know.
People have said these are the 2 major motives. Either you sexually molested her or you snapped because primarily
Let me tell you something. I'm a cancer survivor of stage 4 cancer. John has lost a child in an automobile accident. That completely changes your outlook. When you are standing on the brink of death with a terminal illness, your priorities suddenly line up in a row, and you know exactly what the important things are in life. And bedwetting is totally insignificant. I love my children. I wouldn't harm them for anything in the world. Now, I don't know how you answer someone that continually accuses you of some absurd notion.
Did either of you for a moment suspect each other?
No,
Not for
absolutely
a
not for a
minute.
microsecond.
Tom Haney, who was the homicide detective from Denver, asked me that very question in my 3-day interrogation. After 3 days of listening to him hammer me.
All right, now you should listen, RL, and the only reason I say you should listen because we're not stuck on the Ramseys. You're just in the first part of it. We have 3 different segments today. This is the first part, talking to the Ramseys. Second part, I have Gary Olivia, and third part, I have the interview room discussing the ransom letter. So I hope you don't leave because you don't want to listen to 3 different theories or 3 theories period with through multiple people, myself and chat. We're not stuck on them doing it. We're talking about who did it and what makes the most amount of sense. And we spoke about the DNA at the beginning of it and waiting on the testing. So please keep your mind open a little bit because we're not just saying that. We're just in the first segment.
I said, don't even go there. If I thought for one moment that JonBenet Ramsey was murdered by her father, we wouldn't be having this interview right now.
3 other family suspects were cleared by the police investigation. 9-year-old Burke Ramsey did not have the strength police believe the murder required or the ability to write the ransom note. John Ramsey's older son and daughter were not in Colorado that night. The police continued to focus on the parents. Another major factor, the ransom note. The ransom note was written on a pad and a pen from your home. And the question is, if the intruder was planning to write a note, why wouldn't he or she have brought their own pad and paper?
They knew that the less they brought in the house, the better.
But they planned to write a note?
Apparently.
Before or after the crime?
I think the note was written before the crime was committed.
What has thrown great suspicion in you, Mrs. Ramsey, as you know, is that some handwriting experts have said that there's a similarity between the writing on this note and your handwriting. This has been inconclusive, but the similarity of the handwriting is the strongest piece of evidence. All right, so we're going to talk about the letter, and then we're talking about denials, and then Lisa is me. I'm going to give you my theory. A 9-year-old could do it, you say, but I want to know there would be no reason for them to cover it up. There would be because they don't want to lose 2 children. What you got 2 people and 2 children. One of them took the other's life. You cover it up so you don't. The other one doesn't go to jail forever. So I'm giving you my theory for right now. What we're talking about. Again, the DNA hasn't come back yet, and we're still in segment 1. Maybe it was Gary Olivia all along. I don't know. Let's keep going. But that's why they would do it, is not to lose a second child. And right here, we're looking at this, implicating this card.
Well, if that's the strongest, then there's not much of a case because we have had handwriting experts to look at my handwriting as well. And on a scale, I believe, of 1 to 5, with 5 being a totally incomplete match, I was rated at a 4.5.
The handwriting isn't mine because I didn't write it. On a scale of 1 to 10, that would have been a perfect denial. But that's not what Patsy said. Instead, she went into persuasion mode, defending herself like an attorney defending a client, offering proof and evidence that it was unlikely to have been her. In other words, this is among one of the weakest denials we've seen on the channel. It doesn't necessarily confirm that she wrote the ransom note, but it's one of the many reasons I think she did. You can check out my video, How to Analyze a Kidnapping, for all the other reasons. Since this video is about filtering distractions from damning evidence, where does the ransom note belong? Unlike the pageant outfits and abuse allegations, the note directly ties to the murder. Whoever wrote it is claiming responsibility, so it's something we shouldn't ignore. And since it contains a language that I think John and Patsy created, it deserves special attention, just like the words I've pointed out so far in this interview, and we're about to get some more coming up in this next segment.
So there's very little.
In fact, law enforcement sources in Boulder, Colorado, told me that media reports of similarities between Mrs. Ramsey's handwriting and the ransom note are, quote, grossly exaggerated. One of the questions is, what reason would it... All right, and you know what I'm going to do just for you, Lisa, as me? As soon as we're done with this, I'm going to show you Paris Bennett. Paris Bennett was very close to the age that Burke would have been. Paris Bennett has been in jail his entire life. His mom let him babysit. His mom left him with the babysitter with his sister. His sister was 4 years old and he was anywhere between 9 and 11, and he stabbed his sister to death. And guess what? He's still in he's still in prison. So they absolutely would lock him up.
they'd keep him away from normal kids, but they would lock him up. So I'm going to pull up a quick segment after that and show you what what happens to them after taking their sister or somebody's life. That I think that might be misunderstood just a bit. All right, let's go.
The kidnapper have for leaving behind both the ransom letter and the body.
I hope to ask the killer that someday, face to face. We believe that this was a kidnapping originally that went bad. Now, this person, this creature, his mind doesn't work like ours. It's boiling. So whatever was going through this creature's mind, we can't logically analyze and explain.
Another indicator of your possible guilt to the police and the FBI is time. It said that only you two had the time and the opportunity to commit the murder, use the noose, this garage, carry the top child downstairs, write a 2.5-page ransom note without the fear of being detected. If it were an intruder, this intruder would be afraid that you would wake up, that Brooke would wake up. And yet all this time, this takes time.
We believe that this killer came into our home while we were gone, waited, was there when we returned.
Waited hours.
Had plenty of time to write a ransom note.
When you were asleep.
When we were asleep, or perhaps before we even came home.
We would have been gone for 3 to 4 hours. That is plenty, ample time to find their way and learn their way around the house.
And be in the house when you return?
Yes.
Does it sound possible that a killer would sit for hours and hours in your house?
And go and get the notepad and then write this really long letter that only your information you have privy to. And not when I say you, I don't mean them. I just mean somebody inside of the house. Now, yes, hashtag arrest Jen Soto always. But you guys, we're going to play this. We're going to do that right after. I also want you to know we have the autopsy ready to go. So if you guys want to look back at it, I really explained it last time quite a bit. The last 2 episodes were really, really graphic. They got demonetized because they were so graphic. And I don't care because I want you guys to have that information out there. And it's got to be. So, yes, we have gone over that. We know what's happened with the skull, with the garrote, with all the things. If you don't remember, go back after this episode and take a look. So this is officially, I think, episode number 3 or episode number 4. I'm going to bring in the next segment with son or brother taking the life of a sister, very similar to this case, if that was what happened. Just so you know that does happen. It absolutely does. The only difference is the mom she wasn't going to cover up for him.
That house was so rambling. There were so many hiding places. Really? He could be hidden for a week and we wouldn't find him.
The intruder theory is the major point of debate in the Ramsey case. One of the mysteries cited in newspaper stories was a lack of footprints outside the house. There was snow, but no footprints in the snow, the story said. Therefore, no intruder. But these actual police crime scene photographs taken early that morning, before JonBenet's body was discovered, show only scattered patches of snow around the house and clear paths to windows and doors. But mysteries abound in this case. When JonBenet's body was found, there was one of her favorite nightgowns next to her so-called Barbie nightgown. And so there was the impression that whoever did this cared about this child, left the nightgown, left the blanket. Again, her parents did it, but it's
getting close.
So tried to comfort her even in death.
That's a very strange, that nightgown should not have been there. It's a clue of some type. We don't know what. Like, we know several very positive facts about this killer, we believe. It's a male. It's a pedophile that looks at young female children. Much different than you and I do. They look at them with sexual eyes. I've thought about it every day for 3 years. I've talked to experts. I've talked to experienced homicide detectives. It's the best profile we can come up with.
John's talking about the legendary FBI profiler John Douglas when he talks about a profile. And you might not like this next part, but we're going to ignore his profile, the footprints, and the article of clothing found next to JonBenet's body. Instead, let's focus on the words John used here. He called the alleged kidnapper a creature and a killer, which is a step up from Patsy's performance. While his tone is right, his pronouns aren't. When we feel spatially or emotionally close to something, we naturally say this. When we feel distant, we say that. This grammar is so hardwired that if an alleged victim of a violent crime says this guy instead of that guy, detectives are trained to note it. Often it means that the victim either knows the attacker and they're protecting their identity, or the entire thing was staged or fabricated. I know analyzing John and Patsy's word choices might seem minor, but its power lies in its directness. It cuts straight to the source. Only John and Patsy truly know whether they're guilty or innocent. and analyzing their
Wow.
words is the closest we'll get to reading their minds.
Why wasn't the body exhumed?
All right, listen up.
Don't know why the police didn't consider that. We were asked when this theory first surfaced about a stun gun that if the body were exhumed, it could be proved conclusively, but it had to be done fairly quickly. This was within months of when we just buried JonBenet. And I, as her father, could not bring myself to do that. I had laid my child to rest. She was at peace. And that was a decision that I couldn't make.
Even though it might have cleared you?
That was not the priority. The priority was my child was at rest.
Let me talk about some of the evidence that some people may not know about. DNA was.
All right, you guys, that's a huge red flag. Now, the way he's talking doesn't match up with what he's saying either. So that doesn't make any sense that you wouldn't want the body exhumed in order to find out who did it. That makes zero sense. It's just as much of a red flag as it would be for Jen Soto to hurry up and go get Madeline Soto cremated right away so that if something comes up later on, they can't test it. Now, yeah, you can say all you want that Jen Soto cremated her, but they already did the autopsy and they took all the swabs. No, they didn't. And no, they don't all the time. That's not true because that's why they exhume bodies in the first place. Many times they don't know or have all the information. And when it comes up later, that's why they exhume because they didn't have it. They missed it. But once you cremate, you can't go back. They didn't, and yet he still doesn't want her to be dug up to find out the truth. And him saying the words that he's saying just doesn't match up. I have to let her be at rest, but nothing else seems to match the tone or what he's saying at all. So it's a red flag. I'm not saying, yes, he did it. I'm saying it's a red flag. 222, say a prayer for JonBenet that we do put this baby to rest and that we do get this case solved. That's why we're even on here right now, is because DNA is coming back up, things are coming back up, and hopefully we find out. And if you didn't take your pills, people, also hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and get memberships if you can. Okay? Thank you. I'll gift you guys a membership right now. My new computer, folks, is letting me use YouTube gifting. So yay.
Was found under JonBenet's fingernails and also on her panties. This DNA does not match yours, your son's, any member of your family, or indeed anyone whom the police have questioned. And there was a palm print on the door of that room in which JonBenet was found. That print matches no one that anyone has tested. And there is a visible shoe print with the name High Tech clearly visible in the room in which your daughter was found. The police have not been able to match this print, this shoe, this DNA to anyone.
That's correct. And that's what gives us hope that we can find the killer.
You think that's what shows that you're innocent?
I think that will lead us to the killer. I don't accept that as proof that we're innocent. Our objective is to find the killer. That's the only way we will prove our innocence, sadly.
Unmatched DNA, palm prints, boot prints. What do these really tell us? Honestly, not much. Dozens of people walked through the house that morning, contaminating the scene. Mix in the Ramseys' housekeepers and other staff. Any of those things could have come from anyone at any time. Despite what the Ramsey PR team might want us to believe, these clues don't clear anybody either. The presence of third-party DNA on JonBenet's body doesn't magically exonerate John, Patsy, or Burke of the murder. Like I said in my last video in this series, tasting pepper in a soup doesn't mean there's no salt. Anyone who held JonBenet or shared a seat with her could have left that latent DNA. Don't get me wrong, DNA is powerful when there's a match to a viable suspect, but a non-match, that goes straight to the ignore list.
Do you think the murderer is someone you know?
I don't know that I knew this person or not. I hope I don't.
I can't believe that we have ever knowingly met anyone that can be this vicious. But someone killed our daughter. So we have to start looking. We start at the inner circle and keep moving out.
The Ramseys start with the inner circle because they say the murderer was familiar with their family, perhaps even to the point of knowing that John Ramsey's year-end bonus was $118,000, the amount demanded in the ransom note. In their book, the Ramseys suggest that the police look harder at a handful of suspects who had dealings with the family. But high-ranking law enforcement authorities in Boulder tell me that all of the people on the Ramseys list have been, quote, thoroughly investigated and are not currently under suspicion, unquote. If the murderer was a pedophile, a sexual predator, do you ever reproach yourself for letting JonBenet appear so publicly in pageants and parades where she could have been seen?
Well, I think that is probably one thing that I've had to do over again would be much more cautious about.
There's no question we were naive. We were ignorant of the fact that there were evil people in the world.
The Ramseys lost their naivete and their privacy overnight. Reporters clamored for comment, and the fact that there was no comment didn't stop the tabloids. The supermarket press hounded them to the point of libel, they said, infiltrating their neighborhood, their church, even their cemetery.
We've been.
And yes, remember, Patsy Ramsey did die of cancer. I believe ovarian cancer. I knew it was cancer, but I saw somebody in chat. So John is still out there. I'll say he's out there advocating, because if you watch the Netflix documentary, he definitely made sure he got into the documentary and gave his narrative of the story that happened. So that's what I'm going to say with that. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean. All right. After the segment, I am going to show you the Paris Bennett one. Paris Bennett, so you can see that kids do that to other kids. It's a very known one. It's like if I was pleading a case to you right now in court, I would cite this case.
Been under siege for almost 3 years. Hidden cameras were planted at the gravesite. Hidden video cameras. People would call on us under false pretense and say they were someone they weren't.
How did you get through all this? The reports, the constant television.
Barbara, I have lost the most precious thing in the world to me. I've lost my child, my little girl, JonBenet. I have been as low as you humanly can go. You can kick me when I'm down, but you can't take me any lower, because I'm hurt as badly as I can be hurt.
Do you dream about JonBenet?
Yes, I do.
What do you dream?
I dream, my dreams are so vivid that I feel like I've spent the whole night with her. And when I wake up in the morning, then I realize that the day is the nightmare, because I've had such a wonderful, lovely time with JonBenet all night long.
What has this done to your marriage?
I think it strengthened our love.
They definitely perfected talking to the media. I'll tell you that right now. They're able to talk with a smile on their face while they're talking and not let any emotion show whatsoever. Very strange. That's just weird to me. But I mean, those seem like the kind of people that would, her being grown up in a pageant and women stay home and man, thank you, JoJo, for the one guilty of crime membership. They definitely have that down. And congratulations to whoever won it. All right. Love you guys. Let's keep going. Hit the like button, guys. We have 233 people in chat. And the only way that we can get out to the interwebs, into the outer webs, interwebs, whatever you want to call that, is to hit the like button so people know I exist. Thank you.
For each other.
I can't imagine what I would do without John to lean on.
Did either of you ever consider suicide?
Oh,
I have
no,
to admit
don't
that,
say
yes, I
that.
did.
You did too?
Yes.
No, don't say
But we
that.
have other children. They need us now more than ever. So we have to be strong for them. That's the only reason that we have to go on.
By going on, I think she's talking about perpetuating this hoax. Let's also address body language. What category does it belong in? Powerful evidence or distraction? Here's a clip from my video, More Words Liars Use, explaining my stance on body language in this case and beyond. There might be some benefit to it, like Ekman and the micro expressions. However, in my opinion, the risks outweigh the benefits. The chance it will lead you down the wrong path by even considering it is too high. It's better to ignore it entirely, because we want to get to the truth. And the truth comes through people's words, because that's how we've evolved to communicate and how we've evolved to deceive. And I just want to make a caveat about this, because I see so many comments, well, we've evolved to use body language. Yes. If I smile, it means I'm happy. If I fold my arms, yes, it can mean I'm angry. But besides that, it doesn't really tell you much. I could be angry because I'm telling you the truth and you're not believing me. Or I could be smiling because it's duper's delight, or just because I'm happy to be on TV. So it leads you down too many wrong paths. When I hit play, Patsy's going to make another faux pas. The same exact one O.J. Simpson and the McCanns have made. See if you can...
Wow. Okay, we're going to stop that for 1 second, because Spectral Whispers, this is the quote of the month, I'm going to say. What you're saying, I'm going to read it. Here's an interesting point. When a couple loses a child, it often drives a wedge between them, even if there are other children, unless there's something stronger holding them together. With that, I say Sebastian Rogers. That reminds me of the Sebastian Rogers case. And if they ever split apart, we're going to hear them sing like canaries, both of them. But yes, absolutely, that is an interesting point between the two cases here. So I'm just kind of correlating those two. I appreciate that. Spectral says, I was 9 credits away from a bachelor's in forensic psychology. I've been fascinated with it for years. All right, let me make everybody take their meds real quick. It's funny. It's a silly little take your meds fluff thing. All right. Oh, if it's echoing, then I can lower that or move my I can move my you guys just have to let me know because I'm very, very very new in this computer. So let's go. I don't want to echo.
Catch it.
Many still question your innocence. Let me show you a piece of tape, Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey. This is the Colorado Governor, Bill Owens, October 27th, 1999, after the grand jury issued no indictment.
If I could speak to John and Patsy Ramsey, I'd tell them to quit hiding behind their attorneys, quit hiding behind their PR firm, come back to Colorado, work with us to find the killers in this case, no matter where that trail may lead.
What do you say to the governor?
Governor Owens did what to us what should happen to no one in a civilized society. As the chief of his state, he held up his finger,
Thank you.
tested the political winds, discarded 13 months of grand jury work, and for political gain said, oh, don't worry, we're going to get them. I would say to Governor Owens, I asked to meet with you before the grand jury was over. I asked to meet with you after the grand jury was over. You've spent 3 years investigating my family. What are you going to do to find the killer of my daughter?
And I must tell you, before we say what are they gonna do before they find out, or only thing he wants is to find out who did it. Now we'll get back to that, but I can't control DD's echoing, so if it's me, I apologize. I tried to lower the reverb and lower everything up. So yeah, I noticed that with Deception Detective a little bit. All right, thank you, Kimmy. I'm glad it sounds great. It's looking much better, and it should be. It should. These things they're not cheap. So thank you for everybody that's donated to my channel. Just know that I don't go on the web for anything else except to stream and then to put things up for the channel. I'm not like out there all day on social media or anything. So this computer's for me to stream these episodes. So thank you.
The Boulder police would like this to go away. They would like to just close the books on it, pretend that none of it ever happened. But we are not going away. We are going to be their worst nightmare. Patsy and John Ramsey are hanging in there until the day we die. We'll be looking for the person that murdered our daughter.
Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, again and again in your book, you talk about your faith in God.
If it weren't for our faith, there would be no hope of ever seeing JonBenet again. But we know that we will see her again in heaven.
You think that JonBenet is in a better place?
I would have liked to think that my arms were the best place for JonBenet to be. But she's in a place where I hope to be one day. I know I'll be there.
That's so interesting.
As wide-ranging as this interview was, we obviously weren't able to cover every aspect of the case. The Ramseys go into greater detail in their book, The Death of Innocence. If you have further questions, you may find answers on our website at abcnews.com, or you can actually question the Ramseys yourself because they will be available online this coming Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, again at abcnews.com. As to the status of the case, Boulder Police and the District Attorney's Office tell me the investigation continues, but primarily part-time. And they say the Ramseys are still, and I quote, under the umbrella of suspicion. In the meantime, John and Patsy Ramsey continue to fund their own investigation. They say they won't consider the case closed until the killer is found.
Barbara misquoted Patsy. Patsy actually said they'd look for the killer until the day they die. How did they know the killer wouldn't be caught tomorrow? Click the video on your screen now for my analysis of the first part of this interview where I answer that question. Till next time, stay true.
All right, so we're going to stop on this one. This is actually a good episode for it to have come up on, but I'm not ready for that yet. We are going to show a quick clip of Gary Olivia so I can give you guys another perspective on this guy that's confessed to taking her life, okay? So, but before we get to that, I'm going to show you this just so you can see what I'm talking about. And if you know the case, that's fine. I'm just showing you a reference point. If my title name, JonBenet Ramsey, did her parents cover it up for her brother just know that that does happen. Young kids do that kind of thing, and parents do that kind of thing. So it's just a theory. I'm not saying I'm stuck on it. I don't have DNA to tell you, but here's my theory. And this is hold on, I put the wrong one on. Paris Bennett did this to his sister, and the mom did not cover it up. But the reason parents do cover it up is so that they don't lose two children. So quickly, let's get into this. Paris Bennett admits to taking his sister's life to punish his mother. 6-minute Piers Morgan clip. Folks, I don't think he was much older than 9, 10, or 11. I can look it up, but look at that little guy and look at his sister. All right. So mom goes out, mom's working her job, gets a babysitter. This little kid here tells the babysitter, please go home. I got my sister covered. Don't worry about it. He goes in his sister's room, gets a knife, and stabs the crap out of her. Okay. So we're going to watch this for another 5 minutes. Just saying. He did that because he wanted his mom's attention. He was upset because his mom's attention was now all on the new baby and no longer you, Paris. All right. So that's also another possibility in the case of John. And now when we saw Burke, I just looked at everybody's comments in the last episode with when we had Burke on the Dr. Phil show, and everybody was like, he's creepy. He has weird smiling tendencies. Something's wrong with him. Everybody had a different kind of answer, but it all came back to like, yeah, he could have done that. This guy obviously looks like a psycho, and yes, he had tendencies from when he was younger, but just take Burke out of the situation and place this guy. You saw how young he is. So with those of you that say, no way he could have done it that young, think about this guy. So Jamila, we are talking about the JonBenet Ramsey case, but I'm putting him in the place of Burke and his sister in the place of JonBenet for 4 more minutes. Or not even 4, for 3 minutes. Now that's his mom and that's him. You guys saw the pictures. That's okay that he was 13 and 6. I'm not saying that this is exactly, but what I'm saying is that happens from a young age. He was thinking about this before it ever happened. And then it happened. So you saw how little he looked. He was a small 13-year-old. He did it over jealousy. Okay. Okay, let's keep going. You can say once whatever and whatever and whatever, but look at how young that guy looks. That was the age he was when he took her life. And no, it was not an accident. He went in there, got a knife, and stabbed her and took her life. So there you go. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick example. I love when I'm watching other episodes and someone will interject with another case, because I really love learning about another case. I love other cases. All right. Now, before I get to the next theory, well, here's the next theory. Here you go. This is Gary Olivia that claims that he's the one that took JonBenet's life. Now they're gonna do more DNA testing. They have done it. So don't just dismiss it and say, no, this isn't it. This is the second theory, different perspective. This was last year. And then we're gonna get over to the interview room, who I saw someone talking about earlier.
Colorado, John Ramsey was up before dawn.
Well, I was shaving, I guess, in the bathroom.
And we have a back staircase from the bedroom areas. And I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit because it was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John.
A terrifying message scrolled across 3 pages.
It said, "We have your daughter."
I just heard Patsy scream. I could tell by her scream that something.
All right, I'm trying to fix that because I just set this up. So I have an effect mode, and then I have this other one. So if I press the button, let me know. You say the video echoes. That's not good. I don't want the video echoing, guys. So let me turn this off for a minute and see what happens.
What's going on? I didn't know what.
I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed.
JonBenet Ramsey was found dead, strangled in the
Is
basement
it better
of that
now?
home. Wasn't kidnapped. This case still never.
I just took the effect mode, and then there's something called Ducker. I took it off and switched it up. So let me know.
Solved. No one's been held responsible since 1996, but some huge developments tonight we want to talk about. Let's bring in our special guest joining us in New York, senior reporter for the U.S. Sun, Luke Kenton is with us. Luke, great to see you. Thanks so much. Read your article. Wow. Let's talk about this development. It's a man named Gary Oliva. Gary Oliva, tell us what you found out about him, what his link is.
All right, so Gary Oliva, excuse me, earlier I said Gary Olivia. Gary Oliva, this guy confessed to taking JonBenet Ramsey's life. All right, so here we go. Here's another scenario. So I say JonBenet Ramsey, did her parents cover up for her brother? Hashtag Netflix, hashtag documentary. You'll see in the documentary John pushing the narrative that some monster PEDO did it. Okay, so here you go. Here's a monster PEDO. Let's go.
Is to JonBenet Ramsey.
Yeah, so Gary Oliva, first and foremost, is not a good guy. The story involving Gary kind of begins on the 27th of December 1996, when he was reported to Boulder police, because basically the night before, he'd called an old high school friend back in California, who he said through tears and could barely catch his breath, "I've just hurt a little girl." So this was on the night that JonBenet's body was, a few hours after JonBenet's body was found on December 26th. He was crying he'd hurt a little girl in Boulder, and he hung up the phone. Now his friend that was on the other end of the phone didn't know really what to make of that call, was obviously concerned, but couldn't get any information out of him. It wasn't until the next day that he went on the front porch, picked up the newspaper, saw the news that a 6-year-old girl had been killed in Boulder, Colorado. He immediately calls the Boulder Police Department, reports the call from the day before, and then 3 months pass, he doesn't hear anything, and he calls the tip line again, reports it to Boulder Police, doesn't hear anything again. Fast forward 19 years later, Gary Oliva is in prison for child pornography offences and confesses in a series of letters to the same person that he called that night, claiming to have killed JonBenet by accident.
This is unbelievable. I mean, this is did police ever talk to this man in California? I mean, he is claiming to have gotten a call before this story is even in the news from this guy.
All right, so we started off talking about how long this case has been, DNA that's coming out, going to be tested again. There's new DNA. And then we had the second theory, and we showed what can back that up. Now we're looking at the next theory of Gary Oliva, and we're going to show what backs that up and what he did. He told the police they didn't do anything. And this is the guy, the monster, I believe, that the parents are talking about. This is the kind of monster that they're talking about. Now, many people think there was a PEDO ring there in Colorado. Certainly there could have been. Back then you couldn't go on people's cell phones and find text messages. All right, some people think it's a cover-up.
Yeah, so hours before it, made headlines across the country, he said, "I've hurt a little girl," and he's in Boulder. And bearing in mind at the time, this guy was living, was associated with the property about 13 houses away. He was getting his mail from a church, 13 houses away from the Ramsey family. And the tip, like I said, wasn't followed up upon immediately by Boulder police. At the time, they were zeroing on either Patsy or John Ramsey being responsible for JonBenet's death. It wasn't actually until 4 years later when he was arrested on the campus of the University of Colorado in Boulder, with pictures of JonBenet in his bag, a poem that he'd written to JonBenet called Ode to JonBenet, and he was also found with a stun gun. And that was kind of a crucial development for investigators because over the course of their investigation after the first few months, they kind of theorized that perhaps that she was subdued with a stun gun prior to her death. So that's when police started looking at Gary, which was 4 years later.
Yet nothing seemed to come of it all. Was he, in my understanding, there's a photo of him or images of him at a vigil for JonBenet as well?
Yeah, that's right. So this vigil took place on the year anniversary of her death. So that was on Christmas night. I believe that was held a short distance away from the Ramseys' home. And that picture that we published was actually taken by private investigators hired by John Ramsey, who were investigating Gary at that time, believing him to be a very credible suspect and certainly somebody that's capable of committing such a horrific act. The Boulder police wouldn't look at Gary for another 3 years after that.
Unbelievable. One final question. How specific were the details in these letters, these alleged confession letters?
Yeah, so the confession letters were written in and around 2019. There's roughly a dozen of them. One of them I can read you here. I've got it written down below me here. It says, I never loved anyone like I did JonBenet, yet I let her slip and her head bashed in half and I watched her die. It was an accident, please believe me. So, he's claiming that he killed JonBenet by accident. Whether or not you can take that at face value, who knows? That's for Boulder Police to investigate. They did acknowledge the confession letters when they were first published in 2019, but seemed to kind of brush them under the carpet. They said, we've heard this guy confess before and we've looked into it. There's no further updates in this case. But I think, certainly he's a character that John Ramsey was particularly interested in. I think he's certainly somebody that's worth having a second look at.
Absolutely. Luke Kenton, U.S. Sun. Great job. Thanks so much, Luke. Appreciate it.
So we got a couple more minutes on this. So there throws a wrench in the case, right? Because many of you are completely like either this person didn't do it or this person did do it or what have you. Hopefully soon we'll get the DNA testing back and it will be able to dispel some of these theories. I don't know if it's going to solve the case. I really hope it does. But in the meantime, we're going to look at all angles. As soon as this is over, we're going to go to the interview room, which is very interesting. We're going to get back to that ransom letter.
All right, folks, let's bring back in our think tank. So, to me, right, we had John Mark Carr, who did the initial confession. They brought the guy back from Bangkok. I went out there, everyone out there. Unbelievable. At the time, the biggest moment in court TV history, when John Mark Carr first appeared in court in the United States. He didn't do it, right? It was just, a little whew. So, to me, the key to this whole thing seems to be, if you don't mind, I'll go to Erica first. You guys mind? Seems to be this phone call. And I don't know if you can go back to 1996 to track phone records.
Right?
Probably can't. But to me, that is the key. That's what makes this a little different.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm so glad that as time progresses, we're getting more information. I mean, finally, we got something that's giving us some indication of who possibly might have done it, because it's been any and everybody that's been blamed for this.
This is my new anecdote when I get asked about beyond a reasonable doubt and sufficiency of investigations. This is the most investigated case of my life. And here we had a report immediately, then 3 months.
And next, we're going to get into the interview room. You guys are going to be like, whoa, more information. And welcome. Welcome, Ashley. Good to see you. I'm glad that you saw that. He's crazy, yes. But you have somebody going to the police saying they did it. And I don't think they've really looked into it, but I wonder what the DNA is going to say about that. Right, we're almost done with this clip.
Later, never heard back. 4 years later, maybe we'll look at it. Now, 19 years later, and people ask about how we trust our criminal prosecution system and how we get to reason this.
I believe in our criminal prosecution system, but 19 years later, it's too much information that we can never prove. Just can't be done. Way never beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, right? Proving it, but trying to figure out who could have been responsible. All right, folks, programming note. JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, will join us live Friday night to discuss the latest in this investigation. We'll talk about this man Friday night.
All right, now keep in mind, he is the one that pushed the narrative completely in the Netflix documentary. It's him that's talking. It's him narrating. It's him they keep going back to. Obviously, the mom is no longer alive. Now we're going to get into these guys. This guy, Dr. Gary Bricado, they've been spending lots of time on this case, and they think it out, and they use evidence. This is talking about how the ransom note figures into the evidence. Now, that's a huge piece, you guys. It's a huge piece of the puzzle because of how the paper was, the analyzing of the writing. Why would that match up to someone in the house but not be involved? It doesn't make sense. What's up, Ashley? He could have totally done it. Check DNA ASAP. I agree. At the beginning of the episode, we said that we're working on the DNA. They are working on it anyway. All right, if you guys just came in here, do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and then hit the notification bell. I have another episode coming tomorrow, and then Saturday at 6 p.m., another episode. I haven't quite decided, but tomorrow we're going to talk about the Slender Man case, you guys. We haven't seen this in a long time where somebody gets not guilty by reason of insanity, and then they're almost ready to come out. And on top of that, I say they, that's perfect. One of the defendants is now transgender. So, and she's actually convicted. So I wouldn't call her defendant. She's transgender and she wants out. She thinks she's ready. I think she's not ready. I don't think they should let her out. But you guys, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Good to see you, Carly. Did you just wake up? All right. Check sub was on the kitchen counter. Check stub. All right. Let's listen up on this one for a little bit.
As you can see, Dr. Picado's in the house. Once again.
All right, let me go.
And if you don't know who he is, poll out there right now. As you come in, you probably saw it. Do you think this case will be solved by DNA? It's going to be curious. Right now, it's an 80-20 saying yes, 20% saying no. So at the end, I will give you the verdict from the court of public opinion. Now, a little bit about Dr. Gary. Those of you who have been with us for quite some time and those of you who are just subscribing, we're grateful. Just all we ask is one thing: hit that subscribe.
All right, yeah, do that.
Schizophrenic, and that it is plausible he's just some very strange guy insinuating himself into the story. But we did think that he certainly has.
Okay, so now we're talking about him again, Gary. All of how do you say that? Oliva. It's not Olivia, it's Oliva. Excuse me, Gary Oliva. We're talking about him again. That's why I showed you that clip of Gary Oliva, so you know who that guy is that's obsessed with JonBenet Ramsey. And now we're going to bring the conversation to here and talk about the ransom note. Was that ransom note for him? If he's from him, if he's the one that confessed,
has to be looked at. And I think DNA will help. But anyway, so take a look at that. You can find it. I think it's about to be reposted on YouTube any day.
You're in episode 2.
I'm in episode 2. Did you see it, Chris?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. It hasn't. 2 hasn't come out yet.
Oh no, it was out. It was live Friday.
Oh, I don't have TV. Remember?
Oh, so you'll see it. You'll see it when it comes out.
I'll see it. I literally have to watch everything after the fact, but it is going to be great. Also, another thing before I forget. Before we talk about tonight's topic, and tonight's topic is going to be sensitive. Again, there are.
I thought we already talked about. Come on, guys.
The Sheriff Luna down there. I know Jim, who is the LAPD chief, and they're knee deep in a lot of problems. So we hope the very best for them. We hope for so many lives and their lives. Knowing
yes, prayer for LA, guys. Prayer. All right, come on, you guys, get to the top. I should have timestamped this.
So Chris, I think you'd agree that was a radicalized person.
Yeah, and as Tina just says, we all need to put our seatbelts on.
That's what I always say. That's what I say.
Over
put your seatbelts on, folks.
In that mass murder, and you're the expert. That is my nightmare scenario. Because they already tried the plane stuff, but that's another talk. That's another topic. I don't want to get off into that lane because tonight we're going to talk about JonBenet Ramsey's criminal investigation. So
okay, let's go.
I kind of get stuck in a lot of different things. But that said,
yes,
this is the approach that we take when we come to trying to figure out. Okay, how does this thing work? Right? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? And one of the places we start, and I've talked about this many times, but I put this slide together here so that everybody can actually see what exactly we talk about when we talk about the Venus continuum and victimology. So one of the first places you always have to start is you have to look at the crime scene in its totality, but more importantly, you have to start with the victim. And you have to take a look at that victim and say, what is this victim telling us? Okay. And so in the victim.
Okay. And if you lost because they're fabulous, but they're I'm like, I sped it up. We're talking about JonBenet Ramsey still. And right now we're doing the victimology continuum, and they're going to drop some really good information using the evidence to find out if they think or what they think happened to JonBenet, and then interject the evidence that is the ransom note into it. So there we are. We're up to speed with that. I like people that talk really fast.
So We have to keep that in line. Now, does that mean it could be a family member? Of course it does. Does that mean it could be the handyman? Of course it does.
There you
does
go.
Does it mean it could be the caterer's family or the caterer? Of course it does. That because there has to be what we call a contact point. There has to be a cross. Okay? And that's why I think the second scenario where the girl, months later was actually assaulted in her house, that offender was contacted. That individual had a contact point with both JonBenet and that victim.
Now, remember, someone was talking about that earlier, so I hope you guys are still here listening, because somebody said that there was somebody in that same neighborhood or in that area that happened to. Yeah, I do love the in-depth, slow way they analyze. I do. It's definitely a deep dive, but in my brain, it's going this fast, and I'm like, I already know what you're going to say. Just spit it out. Okay, so that's what they're talking about right now is the person that was in close proximity that had relation to both of the girls
at their dance studio. So that is something that any investigator would take into consideration right away.
Yep.
Now, if we change this environment, situation, circumstance, just by moving, okay, a couple of things. Let's say this victim was out at 2 o'clock in the morning wandering around the neighborhood. Okay, that would obviously change the environment. And if the neighborhood is a medium or a high risk, then that's going to move everything towards the right. Okay, if the child in the middle of the day is riding through an area like the Las Vegas Strip, hypothetically, okay, that's a high risk environment for that child. Okay, if you were to take into consideration all of the other problems around those types of environments, and that means we would lean more towards the stranger opportunity. That there's a higher probability that the higher risk there is a stranger involved. So I think comfortably all of us can look at this and you make your own conclusion, but I have made a conclusion. This is a very low risk situation based on my training and experience. And I think that then we have to start looking at circumstances that would keep it in that low risk environment. So any other thoughts, Gary, before I keep moving?
Well,
modus
I don't know
operandi.
to what degree we're going to be talking about the suspect now, Oliva. But what I learned in preparing for the appearance on Court TV was that because of his kind of poverty situation, he was basically living 10 blocks away from them, and I think had some involvement with the church. I think they might have been helping him out or whatever. And I suspect that he might have seen her there if he was guilty, if he's involved. But what's really interesting that I learned that I did not know until this Court TV appearance is that he is seen on film at the memorial 1 year later.
Yeah.
Did you know that already?
Did you hear that?
No, I heard about that.
Are you shocked?
No.
Gary Oliva was at the memorial. Are you guys shocked? Actually, many people are shocked when they even hear about Gary Oliva. I was trying to show you guys the pickle, but you can only see his eyes. And thank you, Ashley, for the $9.99 super sticker. It all helps, especially since I just went out and got a new computer. So thank you. All right. Very crazy, right? Right? It's like, why can't they just match the DNA to it? Why? DNA will tell all.
Right. Now, even if he's not guilty,
come here.
It's very interesting behavior. It certainly, at the very least, suggests somebody obsessed.
Oh,
right. But I don't think that can be dismissed. That's very odd that a person with a history of crime against children who's served time and everything would have this obsession. So I think at the very least we're seeing that. But I just think that timeline is really interesting, and living only 10 blocks away, and the fixation on her, and of course saying he killed her, I think definitely warrants being looked at. But we've got to talk about problems with that suspect that make it a little difficult to. But anyway, one other thing I think I definitely want to say is that when we did the last video on JonBenet, we got a lot of comments where people kept saying the mother's handwriting was matched to the ransom note. Well, actually, the suspects didn't. You're always going to find somebody who thinks so, but at the time, they almost all viewed her as not being involved. And the really interesting thing is that I read, it was published, that 2 experts compared the Gary Oliva letters to Michael Vale and found that they matched the ransom note. But no one seems to say that when they're pointing out that some people say that the mother's handwriting matched. So we're going to have to talk about all these issues. But I think tonight, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to get into the content of the ransom note, what it tells us about the person, right?
Right. And we're going to talk about motive. right? MO is the behavior which is necessary to successfully commit the crime. And then we're also going to talk a little bit, just a little, about signature. And signature is that behavior which goes beyond the actions necessary to successfully commit the crime, right? And
I know.
All right, so we're getting into everything that we should have gotten into. Well, we couldn't have got into it for the hours that we've done before because we just weren't in depth with that yet. Now you know. I hope you guys know all the information, all the people that are the players in this, what evidence there was, the autopsy. Many people didn't even know about Gary Oliva, so that's surprising. She just showed up at my feet, you guys. I looked down and she was coming up to me. All right, she needs a brushing, but hey, it's okay. I still love her. All right, Bowie, let's do true crime together.
Those are.
Tell everybody who these are: the Happy Face, Zodiac,
and the Raider,
and Dennis at the top.
Yeah, that's Keith Jesperson, the Happy Face killer, who that became the signature because of the way letters were signed.
Because he's a
they called him the Happy
weirdo.
Face killer. Zodiac, we don't know why he got that symbol, but the theory is it came from the Zodiac watch, which had the north, south, east, west symbol on it that looked like a gun snipe. And so they think that's where that came from. But he put that on his letters. And of course,
I just love watching you get animated. Once you saw the signals, you were like, "Oh,
I know what they
probably
were."
got the letters.
Well, I do from a couple of these people. Yeah,
I know. And by the way, everybody, which just reminded me, if you have not seen our New Year's Eve celebration we had together with everybody, go back and watch that. It's a 5-hour long.
All right, let's get into the evidence.
Can
guys.
I say yet?
You can say whatever you want. Yes. Why not?
Okay.
Just joined the foundation.
We're not only that, and he's the godfather of homicide. I mean, he's written
the best
manual. I have the 5th edition of his manual. And anyway, we're going to try to get him on the show here. He said he would come on, which is going to be a home run. Everybody, he is like the man.
A living legend.
He is a living legend.
Homicides, Chris.
Him and Jigsaw John are the two most living legends. Well, John's not with us anymore, but Vernon is, in the world. We're not talking about in the United States. We're talking in the world. I know Vernon's worked well past.
All right,
let's talk about the theory of exchange and transfer.
Yes, let's talk about the theory.
Take traces of the victim in the scene with them. And that's going to be important because, there's a lot of talk about how trace evidence goes from one place to the next. And when you have an absolute destruction of the initial scene, i.e. cross-contamination.
No.
And by the way, here is Vernon's latest book.
Wes,
I'll put it up here for everybody.
Yeah, it's some read. I'm enjoying it like crazy. Yeah, I'm about a third through it now. I did a lot of reading today.
The godfather of homicide, there he is. And he is. You can order it now. I just picked it up on Amazon, so you can go get it on Amazon.
Yes.
And when he shows up next week, you'll know.
I love these guys, but Lynette, he's meandering around the topic. I'm like, come on here. I want to hear about the theory. Let's go. We're right so close. Come on. Oh, all right.
Know a little bit.
Come on,
After
man.
they get somebody that they say you wrote the note and the person says, yeah, I did it. And here's the reason why. Until that time, what we do is we stay focused on the criminal investigative analysis aspect. And what we are going to learn even more about is the saliva that was discovered.
There you go.
Hopefully that DNA, and thank you so much, Misty, for that. That DNA in of itself will tell some story. Maybe not all of the story, but it will tell some of the story. So this theory of exchange and transfer is whatever goes in, you're taking in as an investigator.
All right, guys. So Rosie Ruiz thinks that Burke did it. Rosie, shout out to you. Snee, thank you so much for the one guilty of crime membership. We could definitely use some help this episode. We're kind of lagging. I'm trying to get these guys to come to the point, but this is really important to talk about the saliva. Thank you, Snee. Yes, Rosie, some of us think Burke did it as well. Go back and watch the beginning of it because it will give you a good understanding. We appreciate you. I don't want you to get knocked out for spamming though. So yeah, we hear you.
Whatever comes out could be two things. That also applies for the suspect. Whatever comes out could be things that you screwed up as an investigator or that the suspect left behind and screwed up by leaving it behind. So we have to keep that into first and foremost about what's going on inside of this house that particular day, that evening. And
they are.
And so
they are.
let's
great.
talk about the three theories that have always been floating around.
Okay,
four
guys.
Theories, again, from the top.
Buckle up.
First of all, one of the other reasons I want to have Dr. Bricado here is I want to talk about the we did a whole thing on the murder weapon a couple of weeks ago, where his expertise and others have come to the table and say, you know what, this is kind of a sophisticated weapon. So let's talk about 9-year-old at the time, Burke.
Let's talk about it. Come on, talk, please.
And why,
Tell me.
hypothetically, the theory, and correct me if I'm wrong, Burke allegedly does this.
Okay, here it is, guys.
Deed to his sister, hit her in the head with something, a bat, golf club. There's a variety of different types of weapons. Okay. And that the parents discover her and decide, okay, it's time to make the move to save our other child. Okay. We've lost one. We need to save the other. Okay. So, Gary, thoughts on that particular theory? Burke does it, torturing his sister, hits her in the head. It's a cover-up.
Well,
what do you guys think?
That one of the things I've talked about quite a lot is this idea that I sort of named, that I studied and then named elimination murder. And in elimination murders, cover-up is the name of the game, right? So I've studied quite a number of cases where people come up with bizarre, cover stories about outsiders coming in and doing something, whatever. What's very interesting is that in those cover stories, almost without exception, what is staged is a pretty rapid murder. Somebody came in with a gun and shot so-and-so, somebody killed him on the street with a car, that kind of thing. But what you don't see is a cover story where somebody is tortured to death. That's a very strange thing. Like, in other words, you don't, so certainly what would be ridiculous would be the idea that, the kid kills them and you come up with this story that, a stranger must have come in and tortured the kid to death. And, that's a weird cover story. I mean, I don't know what other cover story you would have with the way she was found, but I've just never heard.
Okay, so now we're getting to the meat of it, y'all. The sloths are picking up their pace. The sloths over there meandering their way to the theory. And that isn't on theory. I was thinking that earlier when you guys were talking in chat and someone said, Burke smacked her in the back of the head and broke her skull. And then the other person said, no, he didn't. He was too young. That is a weird cover-up. If he did that, how in fact do you think he did that? Which part did he do? Did he do the garrote part and then they smacked her with the thing to make it look like that was part of it? Or did he smack her with the thing and then they did the garrote to make it look like it was some mad scientist outside, some mad crazy man? What is it? So I love that they're finally getting to it. There was DNA Wolfpack under her nails. Where's this mad crazed guy that did that? That's what I want to know. So let's keep going. Finally.
Heard of that before. It's strange because what you would think would happen is that if you found out that one of your children did that to the other child, you'd be so horrified you wouldn't want to live with that kid anymore, because you would think we're living with someone who's capable of doing the most horrendous thing in the entire world, and it's unforgivable. Yes. And the tears would be flowing out of your face, even because you'd have to live with the other kid that you believe did such a thing. And I just think it strikes me as too preposterous that that's the case. I just don't think so. I mean, Chris, if you as a parent had one kid do that to the other kid, you wouldn't be able to hold back the tears and cover it up, and then live for years with a person that did something like that with no problem and fearlessly. It's an absurd story.
And that was my point with Paris Bennett, you guys. That mom could not even, she's still scared of him to this day. You guys should go back this weekend and watch the Paris Bennett documentary. That shit made me cry. I watched the whole thing and it made me cry because I felt so bad for the mom, and she's still scared of him to this day. She has another kid. She doesn't want him to do with anything with that kid. All right. So that's an interesting take on this. Yeah, I might go a little faster. These guys, love you guys for your thoroughness and the life that you've lived and the leisure that you have to talk slow, but I don't have that leisure.
And, as Judge Judy says, if it doesn't make sense, it isn't true. Well, it doesn't make sense. And I don't know if you agree with me, but that scenario has always struck me as very bizarre. And I don't think so. What I think is it makes a lot more sense. Oh, and by the way, there's also the absurdity that 9-year-olds don't know how to make sophisticated torture instruments. You know, and where would you have even learned about such a thing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the other thing. So do you agree with those points that it's sort of absurd on the face? It lacks a kind of face validity just looking at it?
Well, yeah. I mean, this has been, you know, in the environment for 30-something years. And, you know, there's this idea that says, well, he must have, you know, done it. And because of the pineapple and, you know, maybe he got mad, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But again, I think everybody has had this is my opinion. And by the way, I gave this opinion to Lou Smith years ago. As you know, Gary, I was asked to get involved on some things. I said,
okay, what's the opinion, bro?
A 9-year-old boy, if he gets mad at his sister, let's say he does whack his sister in the head. Okay. Now you have this whole sophisticated cover-up to the point where they're going to leave the baby in the house, call the cops, and put this whole thing in motion with a fake ransom note from this bogus kidnapping allegation. Okay.
There it is, guys.
Now, I'm here to tell you, okay, the reason why this case isn't solved is because they've never ever seen any parents or any kind of case close to this where that's been a scenario pattern or a fact pattern. Okay. Because what if Burke did it, which in my opinion he didn't.
You hear that?
The parents come in and they say that, you know, she's half alive. Well, why not save her? You know, it's like the idea of, well, they wanted to save one child, so they came in with this, you know, this crazy theory of, you know, the father, the mother writing the note, the father.
All right. So do you hear that? So I think some people that were here at the beginning of the show that didn't want to hear Deception Detectives mumbo jumbo and me spitting it out, I wish they were still here because I wanted to get to every part of this. We're hitting another angle now. We hit one angle, two angles. Now we're at another angle. I like to hit all angles so we can figure out which makes the most amount of sense. That being said, I'll play Chucky and then I'll go again. So this was from JoJo.
Give me the power, I beg of you.
All right, let's go. I'm glad you're here, RL. There's a couple other people I hope are still here.
You know, choking the child, you know, post-mortem. But the problem that everybody is not looking at is what the autopsy report says.
Agree.
And the autopsy report clearly states there's petechiae evidence, not only in her eyes, but on her chin, or excuse me, on her cheeks. Yep. That means she is alive. So if she's alive and the parents knew that, okay, then you're right. That's a whole different can of worms. But they're not doing it to cover up to save their other child. That's one theory that just doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't match the realistic experience of, you know, having known people who have children and how they act if they're healthy people.
There you go.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yes. And I mean, we hear, well, you know, Burke was a Cub Scout or he was a Cub Scout at the time. You know, he's 9 years old. He would have been going into what they call Weeblos. Okay. And so those types of things where you got to go, well, wait a minute. Okay. Does it make sense? Is there a logic as an investigator? And Gary and I are only approaching this from the criminal behavior analysis aspect. We're not saying we have the answer. Okay. So if you're upset that, you know, in the chat that, you know, you're demanding, you know, righteousness. Okay, fine.
Yeah. See, I'm glad they're saying this because we start with one theory and move our way to others. Hey, these guys, they know what they're talking about with the evidence they've done and the thoroughness they've done. Doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean when the DNA comes back, it's not going to be one of the things that they're talking about. None of us really know what's right because it hasn't been solved yet.
Hey, don't get yourself timed out though, because it's not worth it.
Well, Chris, I think we also have to point out that if you look at the work of people like Burgess and Hazelwood and so forth, it's very clear that the kind of person who would use a garrote to torture a child to death is somebody for whom aggression, fantasy, and sex have become merged. And that's a post-puberty thing. That's what you would expect to happen in somebody who was older, where they have now achieved puberty, and there's that weird blending of, I mean, unless you're talking about, are there people who go through early puberty? I mean, I really don't think it makes sense that a 9-year-old has gotten to a place in life where sex is being merged with those needs. And there would be things present in the person's life that are consistent with somebody who feels powerless and a need for domination and control that takes that scope in puberty and onward. The age at which people begin to do these things is conspicuously after puberty for a reason. And so again, it's illogical if you know anything about these kinds of crimes. And so, I mean, wouldn't you agree, Chris? That's a sex crime, right? Post-puberty thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, Doc, because that that is another piece of this puzzle that.
All right, so I want them to tell us what they think. Now I know that they're going to get to that, so hang in there. Is it echoing anymore? Because if it is, I want to make sure I know what it is. Anyway, let me know in chat. Makes sense when you think to cover up from the inside. It makes sense a bit. It didn't make sense to me at first that it would be Burke, only because I was like, he's way too young to be that demented. And then I realized Paris Bennett and other children that have done that. Paris Bennett is crazy, so that stuck out to me, that whole psychopathic thing. It's possible. It's possible. Thank you, Lynette, for letting me know. Thank you, Snee. This case is severely mishandled from the get-go. Many people say that. Many people say that. We all want it to be solved, right?
We need to always keep in mind. And does he respond differently as a kid? Well, yeah. Okay. And was I wearing a Superman cape? When I was 8, 9 years old, I could have been. I know I was playing Army when I was 8 years old, and 9 years old, and I was a Weeble.
Okay,
I was a Cub Scout at 8, 9, and 10. And you know what? I also wore back in the 60s.
Okay, what's your theory? Let's go.
By the way, Chris, I also learned
there they are.
Just to make reference to the interesting question of Gary Oliva, who, let me be clear, I am by no means convinced, was a slam dunk as a suspect. But I found it fascinating to learn that he had a strange addiction to stealing people's art supplies. That is very interesting. I mean, what a peculiar obsession, right?
Well, and he's an artist.
Yeah, but isn't it an odd thing to have a fixation? If you're going to go into somebody's house and take something, art supplies? Well, I could see if you're homeless or poor and you need them or something, but that has more of a fetishistic quality to it. And when I was reading about what's been published about him, I said to myself, art supplies? Has anybody connected that to the fact that a paint stick was what was used, in the assault on this child? So that's really interesting. It really is. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it won't surprise me. At this point, it won't surprise me either way. Okay, so now that we've got this scenario, I think, and this is Gary and I talking now. It's Gary, do you feel comfortable 100%? It's not going to be the kid, the brother.
Absolutely. I'm just going to take a quick breather for a second for something, but yes, I think that's an absurd supposition.
Okay, so I agree with that. Okay. And then that leads us more into also the other thing I would take it away is because I can't see him leaving her like this, but more, I think one of the pieces of evidence that really has been overlooked specifically has been the duct tape over her mouth.
Damn.
The father pulled it off and they said, yeah, there were fibers that were consistent, with the type of garment that, mom was wearing. There was fiber consistent with, a pair of boots, et cetera. But the problem is all of that, first of all, the roll of tape has never been recovered. They thought it came from behind a photograph or a painting that was down in the cellar there.
Actually, the reason I'm doing this and I'm even covering this case at all is because I do think that this case can be solved. And it's only because of the DNA evidence that they're testing and why this case is back out again. Because this is an unsolved case that's been out, that's been flying around for years, right? This is like Summer Wells and other cases that we don't know if they're ever going to be solved. But when they get DNA or they have DNA and this new technology came out that can solve a case, I'm absolutely right that I think it can be solved or at least put to bed what kind of DNA evidence that they have or who it is or what. So now remember, I told you children play with other children and they're handsy with each other. So the DNA could have been from a kid she was playing with like the day before at school or whatever. Who knows? I know Reese comes home a lot of times with little nicks and scratches from the playground, but we want to know what that DNA is from. If they have the DNA that they say was in her underwear, who's it matched to? What's going on? So it's 28 years, I believe. It was either 26 or 28 years. I graduated in 97, 96, 97. Yeah, we're the same age. So I don't think this case is like Summer Wells. This is a case that is 28 years old and is unsolved. Well, Summer Wells is unsolved. And when I say Summer Wells, it's like we don't know what happened to Summer Wells. So in 28 years from now, when no one knows what happened, but we're blaming the parents, I don't see how you say it's not like Summer Wells, because we're blaming the parents right now, and it's not 28 years later. But you guys have welcome to your own opinions. I'm not gonna go back and forth on that. And you're welcome, Deanna. Let's keep going. By the way, we looked into the hand there, and they said it was a heart, but it looked more like letters, you guys. It looked like an E and an S.
But we have to think about, okay, first of all, you have to look again at, okay, let's talk about mom. Okay, let's talk about mom for a moment.
Well, the
What are
DNA
your
will
feelings
lead
about mom,
somewhere.
Gary, just as we get in towards the note here?
Well, I think we should look at the note and then talk about the. But what I'll say is that because I do not think the mother was involved, I always thought there was a great tragedy that woman probably went to her death feeling accused by part of the population for a long time, and it's a terrible thing. I mean, cancer on top of losing your child and being accused of murdering your child is pretty bad. I know that a lot of people are convinced of the involvement, and so I'm just going to say, I don't have an oracle where I can say for sure, but I never thought so. And I know that John Douglas, chairman emeritus of our foundation, right, and the Mind Hunter, I know he went and looked into it and knew the family, and he was convinced they had no involvement at all, and that there was totally inappropriate suffering on the part of that family. Wouldn't you say, Chris? I mean, because if they are exonerated, the public owes more than an apology to that family. If they were involved, well, then that's a whole other story. But to me, everything in my instinct, which I must say tends to be pretty accurate, and everything in my knowledge base points against it. But I think when we read this through, we're going to get a sense of some things that are very weird about this ransom note. Not the least of which is the length. If you know anything about ransom notes, they don't tend to be that long. So I mean, the first thing that jumps out immediately is how strange that is. And you notice also that it's directed only to the father. But there are a few things, but I think we should dissect it, really, like literally read it and dissect it, because I think that's what the audience wants us to do, frankly.
Okay, so the good news is
we're going.
Yeah, we'd love for you guys to dissect it. Let's get into a topic. Their topic today was the ransom note. How it figures into evidence. So let's look at that a little bit for about 15 more minutes. I appreciate you guys so much for hanging in there with me. I didn't expect to go an hour and 46 minutes today, and I am. So we'll probably make it to about 2 hours. I appreciate y'all's dedication to this case and to all true crime and being here with me. You guys could be anywhere else, but you're here with me. This is the third theory that we've got into today. So very interesting, right? Very interesting. I told you I like to look at all sides of everything. So never accuse me of one thing, because I never just focus on one thing. I might give you my opinion, but I'm open to other possibilities for sure.
I've got it blown up here.
Good.
In clear writing, and we'll get to the other stuff there in a second, right? All right. So, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully.
Well, Chris, is this case sensitive, like where the capital C is and carefully matches a capital C on the handwritten, like it's matched perfectly? As Sherlock Holmes said, there's nothing more important than trifles. Those little things do matter. So is it listened carefully with a cap? Okay, so it's a lowercase c, but in the transcription is a capital C.
Okay.
All right, bud. Just let's go.
Way to go, Gary.
It matters, don't you think?
I'm teasing you. Yeah.
It does matter, but come on.
I was Mr. Ramsey. Listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
Yep.
$100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money, and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter.
That gets me right there, because they did deviate from that and they called everybody and their mama over, you guys. So that's such a different story in itself. And I hope they touch on that right now, because why would you do that? I would never do that if I thought I was going to get my daughter back.
You will also be denied her remains for a proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over for your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you will stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny.
Now, I can't wait to hear what they have to say to that, because we actually we compared the letter with the writing, but now they're going to tell us they don't think the family's involved. So how are they tying this in? That's what I want to know.
As well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC. All right.
Okay, well, tell us what you think.
First of all, there are a few things that are very weird about this message. I mean, I think you'd agree. But like I said, the length is very odd. And the sense I always had about this letter was that it was, first of all, it does have a sadistic tone to it, which would be consistent with somebody that tortures a child to death. It's very cruel. You know, we're going to behead your daughter. It'll be your fault. You know, if you try to do something to save her, you'll have to live with that. You know, that kind of thing. And so I think you do get the sense of a sadistic character already. I think you'd agree, Chris. It's mean spirited, and it goes beyond we just want the money. You know, it seems to toy with a person. So I think already you've got something consistent with that, and it's also extremely controlling. You know, specific obsessional instruction, excessive detail. You know, everything's been thought of, and yet it's sort of dopey, because the purpose of this seems to be to create the false impression that one is a foreign faction, which one might view as a compensation for the truth that one is a very local loner. If you were a very local loner and you were trying to fib and throw attention away from yourself, you'd become a big group that was foreign. And so that already you have somebody exaggerating strength, trying to seem like the weakness of being a pathetic loner is not present in them. And so, you know, we're part of a group. Also interesting is the fact that this was not written by an imbecile. For example, the word attaché has an accent on it. That is not a word that the average imbecile would write correctly. And I always thought that was very interesting. It suggests somebody who's at least a little educated. I also thought that the amount on the ransom request is extremely specific. It suggests someone who knows something about the fact that, for example, I know this is commonly said, but that Mr. Ramsey was getting a very specific bonus. They seem to have some kind of inside knowledge of that. I think is interesting. And also the SBTC has always interested me. I know there was a theory at one point. Somebody did a lot of digging and figured out that the only place that had ever heard that before was that it stands for Saved by the Cross. It is an acronym. Well, it's not really an acronym. It's an abbreviation. An acronym has to form a new word, like scuba. So it's an abbreviation.
All right, what happened here, guys? That shouldn't be happening. Come on.
Well, I want to hear your. I love what you're saying, and I'll weigh in there in a second here. But I think it's important for the audience to kind of understand that what you're saying here, if I understand correctly, and keep me honest here, is that this note is also almost sadistic in nature in terms of.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Unnecessarily sadistic.
Okay. Help them go a little bit deeper with why you're saying. Well,
I'll hold the text back up, and so you remember, I always say that the essence of evil is the extra, the unnecessary, right? Like when we look at kidnap cases, I know people say kidnapping, but he's supposed to say kidnap. In kidnap cases, the difference between the sadist and the person that's taking the kid for other reasons, like pure financial gain or SA, is that the sadistic individual they do something a little extra. There's torture of the individual, there's cruelty, there's writing notes to the family and boasting about what you did, calling up like Rex Harriman, supposedly did, and saying, I killed you, right? So when you read through this note, you see the mocking quality and you see the little extra that isn't necessary, right? So if we just read just a little bit, once you get past the money.
One of the first things that I noticed, Gary, up here, whoever this note writer is writes the word possession.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He's a control freak. Absolutely right. And if you get down to the part where it says any deviation, technically speaking, this note could have ended several paragraphs before, right? Because you've already made your financial demand and you've said who you are and what you want and how to follow the instructions, right? But then you start spilling into the personality stuff that isn't necessary. In fact, the more this person writes, the more incriminating it is, the more time they're wasting sitting there. The more this is all unnecessary. This is all flow.
I said it took 21 minutes to write this.
Well, there you go. I mean, dopey, right? So that's when you start getting into the high risk. So this thing of basically saying the execution of your daughter would be your own fault because you didn't deviate, right? And then that thing, we would deny you a proper burial. That's a very cruel thing to say to a person, right? Then the thing of going out of your way saying these people don't particularly like you is interesting. Then you go down a little bit and you say, not only would we kill her, she'd be beheaded, right? If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies, right? If you do this, you do that, she dies. So now you're also seeing the controlling aspect of the person. Like you are basically a marionette. You're going to do what we say. If there's even the slight, or I say, if there's even the tiniest bit of deviation, you're going to have to live the rest of your life with. And notice it.
Now, I just took off the booster, guys. Holy crap, listen to this guy's painful. Yes, Zach. Yes, I love these guys, but I'm like, come on, I need to get to the point, and I'm trying to adjust the audio because it can't be there. It can't be the other person's audio without being at me because I'm streaming their audio. So it might be the Google booster. I got a different booster, a different Chrome booster. I just turned it off. So let me know if it's echoing. Sweetie said it was echoing, but other people are saying it sounds good. So if it's echoing, it's my fault because I'm the one streaming it. So I just need to know. I turned off the booster and I might have to get a different one. All right, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. I'm trying to hear what he's saying. What is he saying? What are you saying, Todd? What's your conclusion?
Them with something, and they become a fantasy object. He then gets this bizarre idea in his head, whoever did this, that he's going to consume and own this child, isolate them and do whatever. And he starts studying the house, studying the people there, figuring things out, but he gets some of the facts wrong, right? He gets some of it wrong. He's trying to patch it together with whatever he could do. And then goes in there, my guess is, goes in there with the intention of making this ridiculous story up and dragging this kid off and keeping them and doing God knows what. Okay, starts indulging the fantasy, either because the kid is putting up a fight and he says it's now or never, or he just can't control himself. And the next thing you know, she dies. And I think that this is the kind of person who will say, I really didn't mean to. I wanted to possess her forever. I didn't want to kill her. And that's what I think. I really think so. And the notion that story would be twisted into one in which a member of the household does this and then writes this letter to cover it up is weird because it's such a rambling, odd message. They could have written one paragraph to throw everybody off the path.
Interesting.
And there's a little bit of I thought something wrong with the structure of thought here. That the intensity and length of it is odd.
Okay, so if we stay on the table
true.
here with putting a puzzle together, right? It sounds like we've got a couple of pieces that we can say from our training and experience. Number one, if the theory is, she wet the bed, etc., mom goes off and somehow accidentally kills her, then there's this whole other thought process that says, well, okay, let's write this note, let's use this garage, let's make it look like it was something other than just whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And one, she's dressed in soiled, urinated clothing. They find her in that. So
must have been pretty scared.
Yeah, she was. I can't imagine what was going on there. Number two is, let's go ahead and set the note down at the bottom of the stairs. So when I wake up,
everything,
i.e., that's her story, I come down to the stairs and I discover the note that I wrote. And within 10 minutes, we need to get the parents in here, or excuse me, the cops here, because we know they're going to foobar this so badly that they'll never pin it to us, but they'll just dance around the circle here. And then we also have to take into account that at some point, tape was placed over her mouth.
Okay.
To keep her quiet, I'm assuming, because she was alive while being strangled. And that everybody knew at some point when the tape was removed that the dad would be the one doing it, and et cetera. I mean, I'm not buying the mother on this one in terms of the perpetrator, the mother.
Mothers do not generally kill their children unless they are psychiatrically disturbed. Very unusual. There are elimination murder cases, but it is a rarity. Usually mothers who kill their own children have lost it. They have postpartum. They have gone through some kind of major stress, financial stress. They think they can't take care of the kids. There's been infidelity and they sort of snap. That kind of thing. That you don't. Mothers don't torture their children to death. It just doesn't. I mean, there are cases, but rare as hen's teeth, as they say.
Well, I always found it odd that if Burke, based on what the court of public opinion had had put the weight on that kid, that poor child. Why didn't she kill him? Or at least have evidences of abuse as well? Because this isn't something that you do once as a mother.
Right. It would be a repeat. Yeah. In this case, we have a body and it was tortured to death.
All right. So that's where they are so far. They have a body that was tortured and it's a very unusually long, ransom note, which we all know, and if you go on the theory from other people, somebody got in the house and they used the obvious thing is they use their paper, they use their stuff, they use the stuff inside of the house so that they wouldn't be detected and they could put that on these people. That's what I'm understanding, but I'm just waiting to Come on, guys. Come on, get your theory out, buds. God, so brutal. It is very brutal. That doesn't seem to make sense for the mom, dad, or Bert. Right. None of that makes sense to me either. I just haven't been able to put together in my head how it's somebody outside of the house. That's my problem with this case. And hence was some Patsy said a lot multiple in a array. I never hear anyone I know say certainly not write it. Interesting. Look at the who can tie knot like those ones. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Right now we're looking just at the letter. So
Game changer. That's outside the house. And to me, it's immediate that would be my interpretation. And I think, Chris, if God forbid they do find remains of those other 2 children, we'll be able to say a lot more. It was an outsider or an insider. I mean, do you agree with that?
I think the DNA on this case is going to speak volumes. There's a ton of places they can get DNA, an absolute ton of places. You could get it off of her clothing still. You can, I mean, there's just so much they can do with
at Francine Bardole, you could do it.
Yeah, with the theory as far as they've gone right ahead.
Right. But do you agree with my point, though, that in those other cases, if a body were found with a garrote around their neck, we'd have a very different way of thinking about it.
Absolutely.
That's to an outsider. Right. So that's the whole thing. So to me,
or if somebody in the family had a history that had advanced to the point where that was kind of a part of the game.
Right? But there's no such indication.
There's no history of it. There's no history. And I think that's what some folks are missing. Maybe they're focused so much on just this letter, and then they say, okay, well, they're trying to stick a watermelon through a keyhole.
Well, you have to be focused on this letter because it's a huge piece of evidence that wasn't obstructed by someone outside of the house that we know of, right? Because this gives me the whole Murdoch vibes when Murdoch took his whole family out. Now he's a convicted red rummer, right? He goes in there, takes a shotgun, uses 2 different shotguns, wipes out his family, and then he calls every lawyer, every friend, every person he knows over to contaminate the evidence. So I don't see any outside evidence. I only see inside evidence. So if it were someone on the outside, they did a damn good job of making it seem like an inside job. No, I don't think that the parents covered this up for Burke and then staged it and said, here, let's make a garrote so we can make it look like that. And let's use this inside, pen here. And we won't find her until tomorrow. We'll pretend like it's a ransom note and we think they took her. If we wait until tomorrow, a lot of the evidence will go away and they'll think they didn't catch this person. So none of it makes sense. And I think we need DNA we need the DNA and the progressive DNA test to help solve this. Because how could Patsy have written this letter but not be involved? That makes 0 sense. All right, Zach, I haven't seen you around here, but I'm going to assume that what you're writing is genuine. Also, all quotes from movies. They have movie posters and suspense books all over their house. Interesting. Welcome. Cody Visconti finally caught alive. Welcome to you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe to all notifications so you get them, okay? All right, let's keep going. And the housekeeper, you say Linda wrote the book. She specifically mentioned certain words and phrases she remembers Patsy saying. Fat cat was something some grandma used, and hence. Right. All right, let's keep going. Just for a little bit longer, guys.
Saying, okay, well, the mother must have written it. Well, why? Because you have some experts saying she did, but then over here you have other experts saying she didn't. I mean, you have this mixed bag. I mean, that's an investigator's job to sit back and go, okay, well, are they both right or are they both wrong? What's the deal here? Because if it's a stranger and the stranger wrote it, and we won't find that out until you sit the person down in the interview, and the person goes, had you all fooled? Okay, I wrote it. Okay, I mean, look what's happening in Koberger's case today. The defense is attacking all of his experts, or all the people's experts. Okay? That's what they do. That's their job. Okay? And so this is going to be the same thing. And if you look at the sophistication of this versus the letter, this is why I keep saying, let's not leave this and jump to the letter. Let's take the note and put that over on the side of the table, like I said the last time, as the pretzel.
Yeah, but we have to look at both of them. And when I look at both of them, you guys, what keeps coming in my head is that there were more than one person involved. That's what comes into my head when I see this. When I see the letter and I see the garage, and then I hear about the golf club and the hitting of her head. I don't know about the stun gun thing because I looked at her autopsy and to me, it didn't look like a stun gun. But then again, it would have to have been a bruise before her life was taken because of the way it looked like a bruise as well. Again, I don't, I'm not studying autopsy, so what do I know? But I saw, and I have the autopsy on Patreon, and I've looked at it. And so when you put those two pieces together, it just equals more than one person. That's all I can say. I can't say, Patsy was jealous of her daughter, so she's the one that did the garrote and took the paintbrush and then wrote the letter. But the dad did. I don't know. I can't break it down for you because I don't know. John Douglas is the OG. If he says the parents weren't involved, I believe it. Good job, against all logic. There you go. We have 3 different theories in one episode tonight. Let's listen a little further because it takes them a little while to get to anything.
It's her pen, so it must be her. Okay. Well,
yeah,
here's a thought. When Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped, folks were saying, "Look, Ricky's not your guy. Ricky is not your guy." They went in, they kicked that guy's, trailer park. He's a registered sex offender. They did press conferences about him. They did everything. Everybody else was saying, look, there's a problem here in River City. Let's go back to the house. Let's see what happens. And then all of a sudden, Elizabeth's sister goes, oh, I remember who it was. It was the maintenance man, the painter guy. And lo and behold, they start looking for that guy. And there is Elizabeth in El Cajon, California, wearing a veil with that guy. This is such a low risk situation. It is going to be somebody that had access or had a contact point with that family. That is not going to be rocket science.
Okay, so that's our theory, guys.
That's what I'm saying. It's unnecessary extras. The only people who do unnecessary extras are people that do those things because they must psychosocially, that they get psychosexually. That's why you do it. Otherwise, you don't bother. You just do what you're going to do practically and get out. And that's the giveaway, that this is somebody motivated by something that is not pragmatic in their mind. It's fantasy oriented, and that immediately starts eliminating.
Okay, so I don't think that we need to listen to another hour of these guys. I love them and it's great. I can listen to them and just chill out and not have to listen to anything else for 3 hours. But 3 theories that we have. I don't know why it's going slow on my end. Yeah, Marissa. So that's their theory too. That's their theory. We started off with Patsy and John. And then we moved to Burke. And then now we're moving to an outside intruder. I don't know why my background's going slow. It's driving me nuts, you guys. Let me see something. Let me take this off. I wonder if I take this off and go in black. Woo! There it goes. So now it's not doing that anymore. That's interesting. Let's see. Let's see what this looks like. What's up, guys? I'll do that so it's not eating up my internet. All right. So, guys, check this out. Yeah, 3 different things. We really need to you're right, Amber. We're going to say right there, we need to think about this very much, even deeper, because every single person that we've seen on this episode tonight, and every single person that's in chat has many different scenarios and they can't all be right. So what we want to do is follow the case, see the new things that come out, probably go watch the Netflix documentary if you haven't. Maybe it will help to convince you or anybody what's going on in that case. John narrates that, in my opinion. He narrates the tone of that whole series. So let's do that, and then we'll keep up on what's happening, and I'll keep you guys posted. Yeah, great conversations. Thank you guys for being here tonight and spending, 2 hours and 7 minutes on a Thursday. I thought it was Friday. On a Thursday night with me. Where was the break-ins on the street that week? I don't have that information on me, but I know there were. I didn't say break-ins necessarily. I just said crimes in that area. It was known that there were crimes in that area. So that's where we are. It was either someone on the outside that did it in the area committing other crimes. It could have been Gary, Gary. We'll just call him Gary, all right? It could have been Gary. It could have been Bert and the parents covering up, or it could have been someone that we just don't know about. So it has been that long. Thank you for your time, Jay. Yeah, it's been really long. complex knot. This case is pretty heavy. That's why. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here and chatting, etc. Hit the like button on your way out. And if you like the way I present true crime, then go ahead and share my stuff, okay? I'm going to actually call my internet company right now and see if I can go any faster on internet. Love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Love you guys. Thank you, Kylie, Life Artist, Rosie, and all the mods. Have a good night. Mwah. See ya.
Guilty of crime.
I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please share this video, like, and subscribe. You can also follow me over at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, or Gmail. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can use Cash App or Venmo or PayPal. Thank you very much in advance. Guilty of crime.
Are you guilty of crime?